All right, good morning. Hi, my name is Shaughnessy Miller. My pronouns are she, her. I am on the Bronx Book Festival Kidlit programming team, and I'm really excited about this romance Give Me All the Tropes panel because we love tropes, we love romance at the Bronx, so I'm excited to pass it over to Mariah Plunkett from the Need to Read Bookstagram, and I'm going to pass it over for her to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mariah. It's my second year at the Bronx's Reading Book Festival. I'm very excited to be back. And I have a bookstagram. I'm a bookstagrammer. And my bookstagram is about food and books. But today we're talking about romance. What's more romantic than food? Am I right? All right. So I'm very excited to do this romance panel. And thank you guys all for being here. So I'm going to pass it on to each author. They're going to give us their name, and they're going to give us the name of their books, which they're all holding so nicely, and and a little 30-second pitch. What's your book about for those who haven't read it?
Hi everyone, my name is Jas Hammonds. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns. I wrote We Deserve Monuments. It is a young adult contemporary story about a girl who has uprooted her senior year of high school from DC and moves down to rural Georgia to care for her terminally ill, estranged grandmother. Along the way, she uncovers some family secrets as well as falls in love with the girl next door. It is a very bittersweet book and all the feels, and I'm so happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Krystal Marquis. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the author of The Davenports. The Davenports is about 4 young women growing up in Chicago in 1910. 2 of them are sisters. Helen and Olivia are dealing with their parents' expectations as they find new paths in life. Their friend, Amy Rose, who's a maid in the household, has a crush on their brother, but she's also looking to open her own business as a hair care stylist and a salon. And then their best friend Ruby, also is a love interest of John, is trying to balance her family's changing situations. They go from very wealthy to struggling as her father tries to run for mayor of Chicago.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarvenaz Tash. I'm the author of A Whole Song and Dance. My pronouns are she, her. A Whole Song and Dance is about Nasreen Mahdavi, who is a freshman at NYU's musical theater program, but her parents think she's going to the business school, so, hilarity ensues. She has to basically lie, and she is taking one business class, a stats class, that she's pretty much failing, mostly so she has something to talk to her parents about, and then there's a bit of a romance with the stats TA, who becomes her tutor. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Diane Billas, she, her pronouns. I'm the author of Does Love Always Win, a YA sapphic romance. So Shorty, it's her senior year of high school. She can't get into any of the guys that she's dated. And then she has to show around the new girl, and things start to make a little bit more sense why none of the guys have worked out. But then she tells about her crush to her best friend. Her bitter ex-boyfriend overhears this and starts to have a blackmail plot. So she has to overcome this blackmail scheme to get her dream girl.
All right, thank you all. My pronouns are she, her. I'm sorry, I forgot to add that. So many books, like the majority of books, have some sort of romance plot included within their pages. So my first question was, at what point can you call yourself a romance author? Do you consider yourself a romance author? All right, and I was thinking we could start with Krystal. I know that you have lots of romance throughout your book. You have those 4.
I do. So the Davenports has 4 romances. A couple of them someone told me sounds like a quadrangle because there's so many people in love with the same person, but also fake dating somebody else. So it's a little bit confusing, gets entangled. It's very messy, and I love it. I don't know if I consider myself a romance novelist, but is definitely a big part of my story. And I think it's important because I think when you are trying to decide who you love, you learn a lot about yourself. So I think that is a big part of the story.
I also don't really consider myself a romance novelist, even though I guess romance is a big part of 5 of my books. But I think I really like reading romance and writing romance, especially in YA, because I feel like that's usually first love, which I think is just so like visceral and unique. Like just experiencing all that for the first time is just like such this experience that like pretty much everyone goes through. And everything is heightened, and it's just like great drama. It's just great for plot. Yeah.
I also don't consider myself a romance novelist either. It just kind of romance just happens when I start writing. It just even like this, even though love is in the title, it's also about Shorty's struggle of who she is and who she wants to be, and romance obviously is a part of it. And it's a part of theme of other stories I write, but I also think there's just other parts of the novels that are important as well.
I love that. I'm also going to just add on, like, I don't think I'm a romance novelist either. And, like, all of us up here are like, yeah, what are we doing here?
I was like, that's it. That's all. Let's leave.
Yeah.
Over.
I think that I did a lot of questioning when I was writing my second book, like, is this a romance or is this like a contemporary story with a romance? And I think that sometimes the line gets a little blurry on a technical aspect, but I think that it like the main focus of the entire book has to be the romance for it to be like considered in that vein. And I think that that's an incredible thing to do, to be able to carry that weight and that chemistry over the course of 300 to 400 pages. So if you are a romance author, I give you mad props because it is very difficult.
Well, I would say all of your books have that chemistry flowing through the whole thing. So I hate to break it to you all, but I think you might be romance authors. But it's okay. You're so much more. You're so much more, which we'll get to. But what I like about romance, and we're here for the tropes, right? And what I do when I read, or as a lot of readers do, is I insert myself into the book. And I think about, what would I do if I was this character? What would I do if I was that character? Especially fun with romance. And when it comes to tropes, it's an interesting thought experiment because I get to something like enemies to lovers, and I'm like, absolutely not. I'll read it, right? But I would never. Like, that would just never get past, no. Like, once it got to enemy, that's where it stays. It dies there for me. So I think it's interesting when we think about all the different tropes. Do you, as writers, think about what would work on you? Do you insert your own personalities into your writing? Does that ever influence your writing? Just how do you insert yourself when you're writing, especially when it comes to tropes? And Tash, we can start with you because you have a little enemies to lovers with Max in yours.
Ew, yeah.
Yeah.
Enemies to lovers is actually my favorite trope.
Ah.
But I think the interesting thing about tropes is like they're a fantasy. Like it's like the fantasy in contemporary. You know, it's just like, I mean, I think the great things about writing rom-coms is you get to like craft the dialogue exactly right and the banter that would never happen in real life. But, you know, it's just so fun to write and read. But I do think that love and hate are very related because I think there's a certain level of passion that has to go into really hating somebody or loving somebody, which is why I also think sometimes if you have like a bad breakup that it can turn so quickly because I think, you know, indifference is neither of those things. So I can see it. I've never experienced it, and I probably never will, as most tropes. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't too hard to be like someone that you have some spark of feeling for, whether it's hate or love, that it's kind of coming from the same place where there's something that's like connecting on like a deeper like level.
So when I got invited to this panel, I was like, oh, tropes. Do I have any in my book? Because when I first started, I didn't think it was going to be a romance novel. But then I was like, all right, she's fallen for the new person at school. That's definitely a trope. And I started thinking about, when I was in high school, a new person came in and everyone was immediately intrigued. Either you want to see, like, maybe they'll be their friend or maybe they'd be attracted to them. Because in high school, like, you're with the same people for so long, and then a new person comes in, it's like, oh, who's this person? So that's kind of like what I based my tropes on.
I also have some new girl romance trope in my book, and it's more specifically Girl Next Door. And I love a good friends to lovers. That's probably my favorite trope. I just love, like, starting the basis of friendship and then, like, people, you know, deciding, like, oh, should we take this up to romance? And I think that that's, like, really fun and earnest, especially in a YA novel. I think that it's so beautiful. I would say that my favorite trope is actually second chance romance. And I find that it's just something so intriguing about people who get, like, a second time around and how, like, the difference between before and after.
That's a good one. I think my favorite trope is the rivals to lovers, so people who are competing. And I think that is the only trope that's not in the Davenports. Like, I think I cover all of them except for that one. Yeah, maybe the next one. Davenport 2 will have a rivals to lovers story. I think my favorite one from the Davenports is probably the reluctant falling in love. So one of my characters is very stubborn, very focused on, like, what she wants, and then she meets someone that she didn't expect, and they kind of form this romance, and I really like that. But yeah, I think I have all the tropes in my book, so.
The reluctant trope always makes me think of Meg from Hercules. She's like, no chance, no way. Immediately. I'm like, there is a chance. You will fall in love. All right, so thank you for that. So you guys write YA romance, which I think is always walking a fine line. Like you said, it is sort of magical, right? Like this, like, first love, exploration, maybe second love after heartbreak, right? So when we're writing YA romance and we're thinking, I know we're at the children's stage. I mentioned this. I see no children. So when we think about STEAM ratings, you know, and we think about how much to show of the romance, how much not to show, what goes through your writing process? Let's start with anyone.
Can we start? All right. Well, for the first draft of my book, I went through some edits, and I had an editor look at it, and they're like, this is too steamy for a YA. So I actually had to cut quite a lot of steam out. Wow. So it was nice to get someone else's perspective to see, like, kind of like the YA romance. So I kind of talked about it and didn't actually have, like, it was not on the page.
Yeah.
Mine is fully based on my own skills as a writer, and I am terrible at writing STEAM, so I don't. So it's always closed door and off the page. And I co-wrote two adult romances, and my co-author was great at writing STEAM, so I made sure her chapters had the steamy scenes, because I was like, can't do this.
I had the same issue as you, Diane.
Oh, really?
Yes. Mine was a little too steamy in the first draft, and when I got my pages back, they cut out a whole bunch of things. They're like, this is marketing to 12-year-olds and up. So you need to, like, dial it back a bit.
We Deserve Monuments, I would not consider steamy at all. Like, there are some really sweet, like, date scenes and some cute moments that happen, but definitely not on the steamier side. And it is a really good question, especially for YA writers, because I know, you want to be honest, and for a lot of teens, sex is just a part of, their lives, and I know that it was a part of mine. So it's kind of like a balance between, like, being honest and showing, like, vulnerability and tenderness, but also, is this on the page, like, serving a purpose, for my characters and for the plot. So in my second book, there's definitely more, because I think that it fits that character, but for Monuments, that wasn't the case.
I think I was also restrained with the time period, because it's in 1910. Like, there was a lot of etiquette rules and, just the way women went through the world, it wasn't really accepted for them to be overtly
where it's
sexual.
like that ankle's out, and you're like, ooh.
Yes. It's like,
Scandalous.
what is that? Is that an ankle bone? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's always a fine line, right? And I like what you said about, is it appropriate for the character? Like, will it move the character along? But interesting, I want to see some of the deleted scenes of these two books. So, as I mentioned, you guys are so much more than romance authors, even though we're not even admitting that part. So we're so much more than romance authors. You guys are writing really heavily about how the real world impacts our personal lives and therefore our love lives. So I was really struck by how you guys dealt with the real world coming into the characters' lives, as it inevitably does in all of your novels. So I was wondering if you guys can touch on kind of your experience with that, and specifically how that relates to your formation of the love stories. So we have our family issues, our societal issues, we have racism, we have forced outing, we have Jim Crow, we have Southern small town vibes. So there's like so much going on, interracial relationships. So there's so much going on in each of your novels. So can you guys touch on some of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think in Monuments, I really had to decide like how to balance the dark and the light elements, because there is a lot of like family drama, a lot of intergenerational trauma, and we don't exist in a vacuum. And when you're a teenager, your life is shaped by your family and these experiences. So I think that is what makes the romance so good. Like when you get to it, it's like, oh, all of this crap is going on in my life, and I just want to like have a cute night with my girl, and like for us to dance and get away from this. And I think that that's what makes it so special at the end of the day.
I think for the Davenports, because of the time period it's set in, there's a lot of influence of what the limitations are because of the girls' race, because of their gender. But then also for the Davenport girls, their father had escaped enslavement and started this carriage company that provided them this wealth and this privilege and set them apart from everyone else, that they had to balance with. They don't live like everyone else, and they have certain leeway that other Black Americans at that time didn't have. So they have to be aware of how their lives are different from other Black Americans, but then also they're not safe from microaggressions or outright racism. And I think that was part of Olivia's discovery as the book went on. And I think it was also really important for me to show that the family was enjoying this wealth, because I didn't want it to be another book where it highlighted a lot of the trauma. I wanted it to be a celebration of a lot of things that happened, and also like a history that I didn't learn about in school. It was these Black Wall Streets that existed like all over the country that I didn't learn about until I was an adult and I took courses in college. And I felt like that was very sad. So I really wanted to focus on that aspect. So I tried to not ignore some of the hardships that happened, but I didn't want it to be the focus either.
I think with mine, so Nasreen is a Iranian American. She was born in America, but her parents came from Iran. And, they have like that kind of a little, immigrant thing of we want you to succeed. We came here for you to do that. And I think she feels that pressure, which, is based on my own experiences as well. That they uprooted their lives and came here. So, when she wants to do musical theater, they're like, that's not really a career path you should take. So she's kind of dealing with that, kind of the familial expectations, but also realizing like this is what she really wants to do. And if they did come here to America, it was so she could have these opportunities and pursue these dreams. So she's kind of balancing that. At the same time, Max, the love interest, he's white, but he also comes from a very conservative family, and he's he has this conversation with her where he's like, if my parents met you, I don't know how they would necessarily treat you, which is not, something he's kind of dealing with. So, yeah, I mean, I write lighter books, but obviously, like you said, they live in the real world, and so these things come up, even, just when you're writing the characters and situations, because that is the real world.
So Shorty is trying to figure out her sexuality, And during that part is when the blackmail happens with Brian, finds out, and she's not out to her parents, and they're pretty religious, and so she wasn't sure how that they would feel about her sexuality. And a lot of that is actually based on my personal life, because while I was writing this book, I was not out as pansexual to my family. And before that, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship where my boyfriend made me stay by saying he would out me to my family. So I've based a lot of that on In Does Love Always Win? Made it a little bit not as intense since it was YA, but it's just kind of, I think it's important for especially teens to see what it's kind of like, and it's a coming of age story, so it's not like everyone's always out all the time, and that these are things that you really have to deal with.
I think it's especially important when we're thinking about YA, when family has such an influence over your life, whether you want it to or not, and you're kind of discovering yourself outside of your family unit and what that looks like. So I think it was just explored so beautifully in all of your novels. Thank you. So I really enjoyed that. So that kind of leads me to thinking about the love interests that you guys created. So what goes into creating a love interest that you can kind of root for? Or should we even root for it? I don't know. Depends. Not enemies to lovers. No, I'm just kidding. I rooted for Max. But what goes into that process of creating that love interest? Anyone?
I can start.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of like, how can they complement each other and make each other better?
Yeah.
Looking at Shorty's qualities, she's always thinking about what other people think of her. And then her love interest, Christy, is like, I don't care, like whatever. So they kind of like complement each other that way. And got to make sure that the chemistry's there too.
I think for the love interest in my book, they all challenged the girl that they were paired with. So Olivia is this sheltered, quiet girl, and she meets this guy who's like a loud activist who, you know, gets into tussles and goes to marches. And I think for each of the girls, they kind of found a guy that was not necessarily their opposite, but pushed them out of their comfort zone that allowed them to grow. And I think that was really important for me, for each of them to realize what they like or what they want for themselves and see another person saying, like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Like, you're you, and that's what I like about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the course of the book, your character has to grow, and if you're writing a romance, then the love interest is the person that kind of helps them grow and kind of face, whatever's holding them back. Also, I just really like writing banter, so that's just, anytime I can write any banter, it's like a really good day.
Yes, I love writing banter, and I think that Avery and Simone, the love interest in this, they have some really great moments where they just go back and forth. But I think that goes back to why I love writing friends to lovers, because I get to really establish their friendship first and like make sure that, okay, like even if the romance doesn't work out, like these two are really good friends at the end of the day. And so I think that that's just like in my own life, I prefer it that way in my romances. So that's what my focus was when I was writing Simone, and just making her somebody that I would have wanted to hang out with when I was a teenager.
Right. That made me think of the new matchmaking shows on Netflix, and I'm just thinking like how they had like the words come up. I'm like, okay, I need somebody who challenges me. I need someone who is my friend first. I need who helps me grow. Yes. I love it. So we have one more question, and then we're going to open up to audience questions, so get ready. All right. Now, this is going to be a flash round. We're going to start with you, Diane, then we're going to come over here, Jas. Okay, and it's if you can only write one trope. No, I'm sorry. But if you can only write one trope for the rest of your life, that's it. Okay? What would it be? I'll give you a second. Think about it.
Oh, I know.
Oh! Never mind. Go.
One bed. There's just so many ways that you can weave that in. Actually,
we can't do YA for that. No.
Oh, you can. My next book has the one bed situation.
Good. Love it.
Yeah, Hate to Love is my favorite. So.
I would want to try Rivals to Lovers. Yeah.
I'm going to say forced proximity. I love having to spend time together.
I love it. All right. So with that, do we have any audience questions? Woo! Oh. Same round, but you have to get rid of one trope forever.
That's hard.
That's even better. Look at stumped.
Made me think.
Think about that.
Sorry. I was going to say, we're going to start with you and go this way.
It's hard because, like, sometimes that's somebody's favorite, and you don't want to, like, but for me, it would have to be fake dating. I'm sorry, don't throw things.
No throwing.
Okay, this one's not really YA, but marriage of convenience.
I feel like the billionaire baby ones, those. I don't know about those.
The ones that I really don't like is accidental pregnancy. That like really upsets me.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if I've read an accidental pregnancy. Don't. Shots fired. Okay. Thank you guys. I saw one more question. Yeah.
So this is for Diane and Krystal. So you guys mentioned that you had a lot of steam that you had to put out of your books. And so at what point were you like, no, I'm going to keep it YA and cut the steam rather than keep the steam? And what about YA, like, two questions, I guess. And what about YA, like, made you want to, like, drop the steam?
Did we all hear it? We heard it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think for me, I kind of toned down the scenes. The scenes are still there. They're just not they don't go as far as I had originally wrote them. And I think I like the YA space because I like the coming of age stories. And I like the stories of falling in love for the first time. And maybe that challenging your parents or discovering something that you love or finding yourself. So like I really like those stories in the YA space. I mean, you can do them in adult, but I think I don't want adult problems in my book. Like, I don't want them thinking about bills and, like...
Do we share a bank account?
Yeah, like, I don't want that. I want, like, are you going to the dance? Or stuff like that.
Yeah.
My story really centered around high school. And I wanted a coming-of-age story that I wished I read in high school. So I was like, all right, I need this to fit the YA sector. So similar with Krystal, that I took is the same scenes, just toned them down a bit. And I saved them, so they're there.
Yes.
The secret
Can't wait.
file.
The deleted scenes that I was mentioning. We need it, like fanfic. All right, any other questions? Yes.
What is your best advice to dreams of publishing, writing? What are some perhaps best lessons that you learned?
Our best advice to inspiring writers.
I think that my publishing and writing career really started to take off once I just started applying to random programs and like workshops. And once I tried growing my publishing community, that's when I feel like that kind of turned the page. And and I think just applying to workshops and making sure that you're building these like critique partners and like trying to get some community in there, and then that just grows and grows and grows.
Yeah, I think growing a community is very important. I started writing several years before the Davenports, and this was like my third manuscript. And I found critique partners and support through different contests. Like I started writing through NaNoWriMo. And I don't know if any of you know, it's the National Novel Writing Month. It's a nonprofit organization that encourages reading and writing. But I met a lot of, writers who were writing for fun and writing for passion, but also people who wanted to become published. And I think you learn a lot from your peers, and it's great to have someone who understands your struggles and what you're going through, that you can talk through and give you encouragement. And there's people that I met in the contest like 12 years ago that I'm still in contact with. And I think it's really important to have that community.
Yeah, I think the community is so important. But also, something one of my professors once told me was, stop calling yourself an aspiring writer. Like, if you write, you're a writer. Like, maybe you're not a published author, but that doesn't mean you're not a writer. Because if you're spending your time doing that, then you're a writer.
Best thing that someone told me is just keep writing. because you never know what story that you write will stick and get published. Because I've written a couple manuscripts, and this was the second book this is the first one that actually got published. The other ones I had to shelf because it wasn't the right market. I felt like I failed, but then people were like, it just wasn't right. Just keep writing something else, and it might resonate with someone. And that's how This Love Will Always Win came about.
Awesome advice. I saw one more question. Yes.
What's your favorite way to add conflict to romance, whether it's jealousy or different cultures, religions?
Conflict in a romance. Favorite way to add conflict. Jealousy, religion, extra.
I'm awful at this because I hate. I'm just like, can we all just get along? I think for me, it comes up naturally, like throughout drafts, like having your characters have opposing goals is always just an immediate, like, okay, if they want different things, like naturally some conflict is going to happen. So I think like starting off with that intention, like they, just my character wants to go off to college across the country, but the other one, the love interest, wants to stay local, already in direct opposition. And so naturally some fiery moments happen with that.
Yeah, I think opposite goals is a really good way to add conflict. For me, I have meddling parents, so I know a lot of YA books. The parents are like somewhere in Narnia. Nobody knows where they are. But like the Davenports and the Tremaines are like all in their children's business. Like they need a vacation.
I think that I do a lot of character work if I get stuck, which happens sometimes, where I just kind of go back and like think about like what happened to this character that got them here, and then kind of look at maybe both characters and see if there's something there that does like conflict, or that they can like that can come up in conversation that would end up being like a conflict or a problem.
I just think about things that I've seen like my friends go through or something that I've gone through and see how it could fit within the story.
All right, and with that, with conflict, we end this wonderful panel. So can I get a round of applause for all these incredible authors? Dropping knowledge, dropping advice. All right, and they are going to all be signing their books, woo, which is happening right now. So make sure you support our lovely authors. Get ready, get your books ready to be signed. If you have any more questions, you can ask them then. All right, so one more round of applause. Thank you. So good.
Thank you for being a wonderful moderator.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, great, guys. We also have a lovely book giveaway right here, so come on down and grab your copy of The Crown.